when asked about what he saw in Zach Wilson, he said, "Oh, he's special, man. He can make some throws that I only see a few quarterbacks making." Then he takes it a step further. He reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, God. What are we doing this morning?
And here we go.
What are we doing? Like, at least when I was talking about Chicago, I, stayed, kind of relatively normal. You guys are both, everyone's gone off the rails on this show. Everybody. Guys, we saw 2 series from Zach Wilson. Let's just call it what it is. Yes.
Against the Giants, twos. They weren't even their starting defense.
They didn't even start anybody,
yes.
Okay? And also, yes, the offensive line in New York is much better than that in Jacksonville, and it got progressively better last year, whereas Jacksonville's just stayed awful the entire year. Nonetheless, what are we talking about here? That quarterback room in New York for the Jets is awful. Not one of them has a regular season snap. Not one person. In fact, I think it could possibly be the youngest quarterback room ever in the history of the National Football League.
They want it that way. They love it, apparently.
Great. Well, let me know how it goes, because I saw Mitch Trubisky learn under Mike Glennon. Things didn't go so well for Mitch Trubisky in
How'd
Chicago.
that turn out? Not good?
So let me know how things go in New York with Zach Wilson under center and no one to learn from. Call me. I'll answer the phone.
But, Mike, they can't possibly go from there. They can't possibly, what we saw was nice. But are you really going forward in New York with the number 2 pick, at least in Jacksonville, and I'm shuddering to say this, at least they have Gardner Minshew?
Yep. Yeah, totally agree.
At least they have a guy who's actually played and showed you a little something, whereas in New York, the number 2 pick, so the number 1 pick is there. And you have said already, you might not start Trevor Lawrence, not because he's not good enough, but the team around him's not good enough. In New York, they want to be young. They want this. Robert Saleh, he's embracing this whole idea of this young team that's going to learn and grow together. But they don't have a fallback option if it becomes too much for Zach Wilson early on.
Yeah, and that's a big mistake because, again, these are 10-year decisions, and we're hearing the irrational exuberance of Evan, who's representative of the New York Jet mindset, which is great. But, again, 10-year decision. We saw what happened last year. Now, look, I agree. This offensive line is way better than Cincinnati's or Jacksonville's, but it's a 17-game season. Zach Wilson was hurt in college. He's not a big guy. That's the one negative about him. And the way they're going to run their offense, the ball will be in his hands inside and outside the pocket, which leads to potential injury. So I would definitely go get somebody. Maybe it's Nick Foles, but I totally agree with you, Al. You just can't go through the season with that quarterback room the way it is.
Yeah, it's odd that they haven't done it yet. Maybe they're waiting it out to see who ends up. And obviously in Chicago, as we've been talking about Chicago, they have 3, and they certainly don't need 2 veterans behind Justin Fields if Justin Fields ends up being the starter.
Here's the thing I'll say about the rookie quarterbacks this year and this class. The 2 that are sure bet, at least in my mind, to start week 1 are Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, right? All the others are in competitions with veterans or whatever needs to go on in those cities. But these 2 are the 2 that we all pegged to be starting week 1. So heading into training camp, I figured we would not hear any sort of complaint coming out of that team about that quarterback. Zach Wilson can do no wrong. Trevor Lawrence can do no wrong. I don't care if he's sacked, fumbled, strip sack. It doesn't matter what happens. They are going to hear glowing reviews after every single game because they are going to be the starter week 1. And so this from Robert Saleh doesn't surprise me, not even a little bit.
Let me tell you guys a story. Herm Edwards, who I think had a very underrated career as the New York Jet head coach, 5 years, playoffs 3 times, goes down for his first non-introductory press conference. Comes back up. Terry Bradway's a GM. I'm the assistant GM at that time. He's like, ho, we're not in Tampa anymore. And he was blown away how many people were there just in terms of it's New York City. Mm-hmm. And I think what Robert Saleh, he has no idea, this whole idea of we're young, sky's the limit, we're this, we're that. Wait till they have a 3-game losing streak. Yeah. This is New York. It doesn't play in New York. You have to be competitive each and every week. Mm-hmm. And if Zach Wilson has a 3-week hamstring injury, they can't trot out Josh Johnson. It can't happen.
That's the concern. And I went on a rant last week about this. That was my biggest concern. It's just the fact that there is no fallback. There's no plan just in case. It's we're just going with this kid and it's gonna work out great. And we're no, we've seen this movie before. It's going to be a disaster because Jets. That's why.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.